The climb to grace was rapid, but the fall was even steeper. From 15-1 and a Super Bowl appearance and an MVP for Cam Newton. Well, now they picked top 10 and they finished 6-10. And Cam Newton is wearing rompers, and it's disgusting. Brendan Albert is here. I'm Adrian FedQ. Now, I think rompers are stupid, but according to you, Cam Newton is actually a pretty cool guy.
I had the opportunity to work out with Cam at one point in my life when I was working for a place and helping him prepare for the NFL draft. Cam actually is a pretty cool dude. Now, that said, he's definitely a little hipster, and he's very, very unique of an individual. Yeah, I will fully give him he is a unique human, but I like Cam. I thought he was a pretty cool guy to spend some time with.
All right, so let's get into him now. How good is he? Coming off an MVP season, didn't play as well last year. So what is he? Where is he in the, I guess, quarterback type ranks?
I probably would say Cam is back half of the top 10 in there. I mean, I would take guys like Winston over him. Obviously, I would take guys like Carr, Russell Wilson. I would take those type of guys over Cam. But, I mean, you can't deny that what he is as far as an athlete is unbelievable. So I like Cam. I mean, certainly being a top 10 quarterback is great. The one thing you have to always kind of admit is we are living in a golden age of quarterbacks, man. I mean, Adrian, when you and me were teenagers, we didn't have 10 elite quarterbacks. Now in 2017, you absolutely have 10 elite quarterbacks. So I like Cam Newton, though, overall.
Yeah. Career low in completion percentage, but overall, I still like him a lot. I mean, I got him at number 11. I have Winston and Mariota ahead of him now. So I did put them ahead. So basically where I got him, so he's number 11, and then it's like Rivers, Matthew Stafford. I put Prescott up there, so it's like that. So all right, I'll ask you this question: where did he regress last year? What was the big problem?
Quick game and making quicker decisions. He's one of those guys where he wants to throw the BB really deep. I mean, he wants to throw the ball deep, and I think sometimes he held on to it a little too long. He doesn't get the ball out of his hands a little quicker. That was really the big thing he regressed in.
Yeah. And it didn't help that he didn't have Kelvin Benjamin either. So the weapons were very, very scarce in Carolina last year. All he had was Greg Olsen. That was it.
Yeah, I mean, it's really not a great receiving core. I mean, Calvin Benjamin, I think everyone knows he's a good receiver, probably not an elite level receiver, but he's good. Greg Olsen is an elite level tight end, great. But after that, it's just a whole bunch of average. I mean, it's not good when guys like Philly Brown and Ted Ginn are realistically your second or third options there. So not really a great offensive weapon crew that Carolina had surrounding Cam.
Okay, so I know Cam Newton, that's the sexy talk. That's probably what everyone wants to talk about. But the reason why the Panthers did not make the playoffs last year, it wasn't Cam Newton. It was that secondary. It was because they got rid of Josh Norman. They let him go. They didn't sign him. And they paid for it drastically. So for this season, we saw some potential by the end of the year from some of their rookies, James Bradbury, Darryl Worley. But it wasn't until later in the season. So these two guys, these two second-year corners are the key to the season for Carolina. And if they can play up to the potential that they showed late in the season last year, this Panthers team is going to be very good.
I think their problems are very similar to what the Eagles' problems are, in the defensive backs.
Same thing, basically, yes.
It's a very, very similar conversation. But the Panthers' three top corners all are in their second year in the NFL. So they all have invested heavily. Now, I understand what the Panthers did when they decided to move on from Josh Norman. I personally wouldn't have done it. I thought he was better than people gave him credit for, but they moved on, so be it. So now they invested in a ton of draft picks last year in the draft, and they have three guys going into year two, and then they have Captain Muddle in there, who, I mean, he's just a vet. He's just a vet on the team and just kind of figure things out and kind of be another voice on the field. But their corners is a big, big concern. Safety situation, not much better either, but let's kind of dive into more of that stuff when we get into position by position.
Yeah, we'll get into all that. And I think it's amazing how their defense still had 47 sacks. It was still number 2 in the league. So that's pretty crazy. But, all right, we could go position by position now because now we can get into the running back topic. And Ron Rivera has said that he doesn't want to use Cam Newton as much on the design runs. So at least that's what he said. We'll see what actually happens. But Christian McCaffrey, picked number 8 in the draft. How do you think they're going to use him?
Well, when we first talk about Cam, I loved Cam's quote where he said, "Do you ask a lion not to roar?" when someone asked him about, him running less. So Cam's still going to do it. Now, it's still not necessarily going to be as much of a play call thing, but if you think Cam's just going to sit there and throw the ball away if the first, second, third option aren't there and he's not going to run, you're out of your mind. Cam's still going to tuck the ball and run, just not as frequently. As far as Christian McCaffrey, I would love to see the Panthers change up their blocking scheme from a power blocking to start becoming a zone blocking scheme because I think Christian McCaffrey would really excel in that situation. Christian McCaffrey certainly has the ability to run between the tackles and certainly be a physical runner, but I think Christian McCaffrey's biggest abilities is his vision and his acceleration, which I think all would excel more in a zone blocking scheme than a power blocking scheme.
I think the fact that he is such a great route runner is going to help this team too, because we talked about it. Kelvin Benjamin, after him, who else do they have at wide receiver? You could make the argument that Christian McCaffrey was the best route runner in this draft class, and that includes wide receivers. That is how good he is as a route runner. So I think they're going to use him in like the quick passing game. Maybe line him out in the slot a little bit. So they'll kind of use him like, I don't know, maybe say 10 carries a game, but they'll also use him out wide. And they also have their other backs. They got Jonathan Stewart. They drafted Curtis Samuel as well. So they clearly have – Ron Rivera clearly has some sort of vision with these backs. And I guess we'll see it when the regular season unfolds.
Yeah, I mean, when we go to the receiving core here, because we talked enough about Cam, I think we know where Cam fits. When we go to the receiving core here, Devin Funchess is a guy who's probably a little bit on our hot seat, and I think he's a hot seat contender. But Funchess is certainly a guy who needs to really improve. Now, everything you've read and everything you hear in preseason is he's just lighting it up. And some people even said he actually looked more impressive than Kelvin Benjamin, which is fantastic news for Carolina. So if that's true, great situation there. We know what Greg Olsen is at the receiving spot, so we're great there. And then you have 2 slot guys who really come in and replace the Philly Brown and Ted Ginn gadget roles in Curtis Samuel and then, of course, Christian McCaffrey. So all of a sudden the weapons there's a lot of ifs, but if those couple players really hit home runs there for Carolina, all of a sudden the Panthers have a lot of nice weapons around Cam.
Yeah. I'm curious to see how this one kid – I've been watching a couple of Panther preseason games, and this one kid is standing out. His name's Damiere Byrd, the wideout. So – we'll see if he makes a team, if he does anything this year. Like every team has that kind of star during the preseason, and for the Panthers, it seems like Damiere Byrd is that guy. All right, moving on to offensive line. They took a step back last year.
Yeah, no, that's completely fair to say. Now, interior, they're a very good interior offensive line.
I agree.
When you look at their Noel, Ryan, and Turner, very good guard center guard combination. Now, they signed Matt Cleo at left tackle, who, aside from his rookie year of the Vikings, hadn't really shown to be a solid left tackle in the NFL. But honestly, anything's better than Michael Orr, what they had there before. Yeah. So bring in him, and then they went out and they drafted Morton, a guy out of Western Michigan, a guy who we thought, Taylor Morton was a guy who was a tweener between right guard and right tackle. So if he can kind of develop, maybe not necessarily year one, be the right tackle there for Carolina, but if he develops, all of a sudden the offensive line is getting better. I think they're a middle of the pack. I think a lot of the sacks and things like that probably are more tied on Cam holding onto the ball a little too long. So I don't think the offensive line is as bad as people think, but we got to see Khalil left tackle really improve. Otherwise, it's not necessarily going to be a huge improvement there in Carolina.
Now, Michael Orr played like respectable football. Not last year, but the year before. He was actually kind of good for them. And then last year, obviously, just turnstile was bad again. Yeah. I agree though with the interior of the line with Norwell, Khalil, and Turner. And the reason why that's important, obviously, they like playing that power running game. They like to shorten the game. They like to play like eight to 10 possessions. Your normal game has like 12 possessions in it. They like to play like 8 to 10. And that's important to have a strong interior line if you want to run that power football. Now, we'll see how this is going to play out because, like you talked about, you got Christian McCaffrey. So, well, he's more, zone blocking type of scheme. So what are you going to do? I know Stanford played a power scheme, but they did try to cater their offense to McCaffrey as well. So it'll be interesting to see what they do.
Yeah, certainly. I think the Panthers' interior offensive line is one of the better interior offensive lines in the NFL. The problems are still at the tackle position. I don't think they necessarily solved the tackle position. They gave two big ifs. They brought in Khalil at left tackle, and of course they drafted Taylor Morton out of Western Michigan for right tackle. So there's two ifs there. So I guess you can say, did they improve it? Sure. Am I confident that they improved it to become a very good offensive line? Not necessarily either.
All right, defensive line. So as I explained earlier, they still finished second in sacks at 49, I believe it was. So that's pretty crazy considering that the secondary was getting torched and you could get the ball out in 3 steps and, beat the secondary, beat those corners. So obviously the D-line's still pretty good. Mario Addison, kind of underrated. He had 9.5 sacks last year. Kawan Short. I mean, there's a lot of great defensive tackles right now. Gerald McCoy, Fletcher Cox, all those guys. But Kawan Short's the most underrated of that bunch. They still got Charles Johnson, not as good as he used to be, but really good D-line.
Very good defensive line. Yeah, one of the best front sevens in the NFL. I'd probably say they're in that 5 to 7 range. I don't think they're necessarily as good as a team like Seattle per se, but a very good front seven. I mean, when you're looking at what they have, they have 3 really good defensive tackles in Short, Star Lotulelei, and Butler, another guy they drafted. So they have a team who has invested heavily in the defensive line. 3 good players there. And then you look on the end position, you talked about Johnson and Mario. They brought in Julius Peppers back. So they bring Peppers back. He's a guy that, potentially they had the opportunity to kind of see what's worth. And then the other guy that was on the defensive end, and they got rid of him, Keanu Early, they traded to the Patriots, and then Early's got released by the Patriots a couple days ago. So I didn't know that.
Got released, so they're going to bring him back.
I'd be curious to see. Now, we'll find out pretty quick. Did the Panthers really want to get rid of him, or did they say, hey, we can get some value here? If they can sign him back, essentially what they would have done is they got to move up, I think it was like 8 spots and from the 3rd round to the 2nd round, essentially for free. They could bring if they want to bring him back. So defensive line, good unit here.
Yeah, and I don't even think we mentioned Wes Fortin too. So he's one of those rotational defensive ends. D tackles, Vernon Butler is he the one that got hurt? Did he get hurt? He was the one that got hurt. Okay, yeah, because I liked him coming out of Louisiana Tech, but unfortunately injuries fucked him over. So all right. Linebackers. Luke Kuechly, best middle linebacker in the game. We know this. Thomas Davis, still producing. Shaq Thompson, what do you think about him?
Big fan of Shaq Thompson. I'll fully admit, just like I talked about last show, how I really, really did believe Gary Jarrett was going to be a great pick. I didn't love the Shaq Thompson pick. I thought this was a terrible pick. I really didn't understand it. I thought he wasn't going to have a good fit in the NFL, and I've been proved completely wrong. So I will eat crow there, and I will admit that. When I look at the Panthers' linebacker crew, I would probably argue they're the best linebacker crew in the NFL. Yeah. They have 3 linebackers in their 4-3. All 3 of them are Pro Bowl level players. And I don't know if there's another team in the NFL who can say 3. Seattle has 2. I don't think there's another team who can say 3. Obviously, when you have Luke Kuechly, he's the best linebacker in the NFL, so that's always helpful. Davis is a guy who's a vet. He's still really successful, and he's still got great speed. And then Shaq is a guy who is kind of like that scheme versatile guy. He's probably going to be the guy you'll see more often than not matched up with tight ends, slot receivers, and be a lot of times a guy in space, and let Kuechly and Davis be the guys more stopping the run interior. But a very, very good linebacker crew in the NFL.
Yeah, I've got Davis and Thompson both in my top 10 in 4-3 outside linebackers. So it's Davis at number 8, Thompson at number 9. So they're both right up there. Now we've talked pretty extensively about the cornerbacks, but I know you wanted to get into the safeties. Kurt Coleman, by God, Kurt Coleman. We all remember him in Philadelphia, and Mike Adams are their safeties. That's not good.
Kurt Coleman, I will say, in the year they went to the Super Bowl, played exceptionally well.
He did. I think he was on steroids that year.
I'm not going to touch that one, but he did have an exceptional 2015 season. You know, when you're looking at him, then they bring in Adams from the from the Colts. He was one of the better defensive backs for the Colts, which is the good news for the Panthers. The bad news is they weren't a very good defensive back group. So that's not necessarily something you really see. When you look at really what Kurt Coleman was, Kurt Coleman in 2015, he had a career-high 7 interceptions. And that was at the twilight of his career when he's 28 years old. He kind of came back down to earth last year with 4 interceptions. I don't think there's really a great situation here at safety or corners. I think it's just average to below average, really, for a defensive back group for Carolina.
Yeah. I'm with you. Just cornerbacks got to step up. And, I am fans of Bradbury and Worley. So if they can be like average guys for them, it'll help tremendously. So there you go. Yeah. All right. We probably should have given our prediction earlier in the show because we both have the Panthers going 11-5 and winning the division.
We do.
So, yeah.
I mean, my thing here is when you look back last year, the Panthers are one of those teams. They were not as bad as their draft pick shows. They had 5 games. They lost 5 games last year by under 3 points. All right, so those are split games, and you put even half of those games the other side of the margin. All of a sudden, Carolina could have been a team who maybe is in the playoff contention for a wild card spot. So I think the Panthers this year go 11-5, and I think they win the division again. Now, here's the big reason. I don't think the Panthers' talent is exceptionally better than the Falcons. I think they're really right there. I might even say the Falcons are a little better of a team than the Panthers. However, I talked about this in the Falcons show, so I want to talk about this in the Panthers show. The Falcons, weeks 9 through 17, here's who they got. At Panthers, home against the Cowboys. At Seattle, home against the Bucks. Home against the Vikings. Home against the Saints. At Bucks. At Saints. Panthers. Weeks 9 through 17 for the Falcons. Falcons are playing every team who not only can be a wild card team, but all of those could win the division and maybe, except for the Vikings, be a Super Bowl contender. So it's a very, very rough stretch there for the Falcons. During that same stretch for the Panthers, they have a late bye, which is huge in the NFL. They also get the Jets and the Dolphins during that time. So I think the Panthers have a little more favorable stretch there towards the end of the year. And I think that's going to be enough to allow the Panthers to win the division. But realistically, I don't think they're necessarily a better roster than the Falcons. I think the schedule allows them to win the division, but I don't think they're a better team than the Falcons.
I agree with that. I think there's going to be just like a little mini Super Bowl hangover, and the Falcons will kind of get it going late. But the problem with getting it going late, like you explained, it's a tough schedule down the stretch. Now, week 17, it's interesting because these two teams are going to play each other in Atlanta. But I have the Panthers already wrapping up the division by then. So, because I have them losing that game, but 11-5. I mean that's what I have as a record. So I think they're going to get back to kind of what they were 2 years ago, a little bit. Well, not 15-1 because they don't have Josh Norman on their team anymore, but they're going to improve from that 29th ranked pass defense. I think they'll improve a little bit there. They'll still pressure the quarterback. The fact that they had 49 sacks last year, that number should still be there. So, and Cam, I mean, he completed what? 52% of his passes. That was it. So he's going to improve because he's got Kelvin Benjamin back, and you've got Christian McCaffrey and all that. So I think they're going to be really good. All right, hot seat time. Who's on the hot seat?
Well, I'm going to go Devin Funchess here. Devin Funchess was drafted really to be the opposite receiver of Kelvin Benjamin, and he hasn't done anything really to solidify that. So I think Devin Funchess is the guy. He's going to be on the hot seat. He's got 2 years left remaining on his contract. But realistically, if he doesn't perform this year, Carolina is going to be looking to replace him pretty sooner rather than later.
That's a really good one because I'm not really seeing any other ones I mean, maybe Matt Khalil, but like they just signed him. I don't think Matt Khalil's very good.
I mean, I think that's a fair spot to put him in the hot seat because this is really going to be Matt Khalil's last real shot to prove he's a starting left tackle in the NFL.
Yeah, that's true. All right, so I'll go Matt Khalil. Who's underrated?
Underrated. I'm going to go with Turner, up there in the offensive line. We don't talk enough about interior offensive linemen. And I think Turner's one of the better right guards in the NFL, so I'm a big fan of his.
I'm going to go with Kawan Short. And the only reason why I say Kawan Short, because I'm going to bust out my D-tackle rankings. And I've got Kawan Short ahead of some guys that you may not think that he should be ahead of. Let's see. I have him ahead of Fletcher Cox and Gerald McCoy. I have him at number 4 as 4-3 defensive tackle. I think Kawan Short is freaking exceptionally good. So I have Aaron Donald and Ndamukong Suh, Geno Atkins, and Kawan Short. What do you think about that?
I think you're a little hard on your boy Fletcher Cox.
I both have him at 8.3.
I think mine would probably go Suh, Fletcher Cox, Geno Atkins, Gerald McCoy, and then I'd probably put Snacks in there. And
actually,
then
I shouldn't actually. Aaron Donald isn't a 4-3 defensive tackle anymore, so he's in a 3-4, so that doesn't count. So then Kawan Short would be number 3. But all right. So here's the way it goes. Ndamukong Suh I have at 8.4. Geno Atkins, Kawan Short, Fletcher Cox 8.3. Gerald McCoy 8.2.
Okay, we're pretty close. I'm a little higher on guys like Fletcher Cox and Geno Atkins than you are. I think certainly I don't want to dismiss here. I think obviously the Panthers have a really damn good front 5 or front 4 really there, but I don't think necessarily that they have a D tackle who's going to be better than any of the guys I just mentioned.
I think Kawan Short's fucking really good, but obviously Fletcher Cox is very good too. So the fact that I would put him ahead of Fletcher Cox, that shows my own bias.
Yeah, and you're the Eagles fan and I'm not, so that's really saying something. What we're talking about here.
People are not going to agree with me.
No, they're not.
The viewers that are watching are like, you're a fucking idiot. Unsubscribe. Fletcher Cox is not better than Kawan Short. Actually, well, technically, I have them on the same playing field, both 8.3s. All right. We talked overrated, underrated. Did we go overrated? Did we say overrated? No, we didn't. Who's overrated? Is Cam overrated?
As a passer, yes. Cam is an overrated passer. And I put you this way. When they were in the Super Bowl, really what the Broncos did was the Broncos said, we're going to make your quarterback beat us as a passer, and he couldn't do it. Now, that said, he was facing one of the best defenses of all time, and I really believe that Broncos defense was nasty. But he struggled there. So I need to see Cam improve as a passer. I think that's a fair one to say, a little overrated, but still in that top 10 range, I think is fair.
Yeah. I got nothing else besides that. I mean, I think people know that Charles Johnson is old now and not what he used to be, so I don't think he's really overrated anymore. So I'll go Cam. That's my guy. You got anybody?
That's fair. No, I don't disagree with it. That said, still have the Panthers 11-5, winning the NFC South, probably getting like the 3 or maybe 2 seed, depending on how the Packers and how the Seahawks do. But still a very, very good team here.
Yeah, I think I have them as the 2 seed because I believe they played Green Bay at home, and Green Bay is I have them going 11-5. And obviously, if they would get the tiebreaker, I think that's right. Yeah, they play Green Bay at home December 17th, week 15. So that game could determine home field advantage.
We'll find out real quick how good those DBs are going to get, because you're going to get baptism by fire there with Aaron Rodgers.
At least it's end of the year, so
that's true.
We'll get All right, so that's it for this preview. That's Brennan Albert. I'm Adrian Fedke. Hopefully you guys enjoyed our content today, Atlanta and Carolina. Peace out, guys.
Appreciate it, guys.